completely flexible. I'll keep some slots, and you people have to contact me in that slot. Because if I fix the time slot and you don't turn up, it affects everyone else. We'll do it online only. I doubt if the physical meeting is going to be allowed. It's alert level 1 and all that, right? I will check with the dean, but he might ask me not to meet you personally in this official regard. So we'll have online meeting with surprised. Should have been. We were doing graphs.
Sir, from when Viva will be started?
From next week, the whole of next week, we'll have time. If you miss any one slot, we'll move to next day's slot and so on. So I'll keep some 1 hour in the day. You can even keep it after classes. When do you have? Ah, important. When do you have your new classes? All in the usual time slots?
No, sir.
Oh, anyway, I'll just coordinate with some of the CRs, and we'll find slots on all days where you could possibly come and give your. And I'll vaguely write it in that assignment sheet also. Day one, day two, who will come, and it's your job to contact me and say we are ready and stuff like that. Keep it somewhat loose. I mean, 4 in a day, maybe. How many? 260? I have to look at it now. I didn't even see. How do we see this? Nonsense. Yeah, it's here. Yeah, approximately like 16. If you take 17, okay. So 4 in a day would be okay, right? 4 into 520. Not more than 4 in a day. I'll just put these slots here only, and day one, day two, etc. And it's your job to contact me. Even outside the slot hours, if I'm free and you are free, we can meet. That's all. In Europe, I have been told all this. I'm not an expert in Europe's universities, but like in the master's programs at least, the student has to do certain courses, number of courses, as you have seen also in the schedule. I mean, in your structures, but there's no real urgency on when he or she should do it. So once the student feels they can sit in the classes and then not give the exams. If the student does not feel ready, maybe next time it's offered. That time one can go and sit in the classes, give the exams, and Once the marks are like passing, etc., it goes to the instructor and say, look, I want it written in my grade sheet. So his grade sheet is in his hand only, or no, I don't know what it is called, report card maybe. So there he writes the grade and signs. The student also signs next to it. That's the end of that course, and so on. You should do till the end of the semester, end of the coursework. And finally, he gives it to the university. The university checks all these. Yes, you're passed, and this is your grade sheet. Imagine how it would be in India. Forgery. Everyone would have learned forgery by now. Not just a few of you, all of you. Okay. So like that, we will. You when you are ready, you contact me, and we will have the presentation. So I really want to discuss at least not planar graphs and graph coloring. We can't do everything in graph theory, but we should at least know about Eulerian and Hamiltonian paths, shortest path problems. We should have a definition of it. At least this 10.5 we should do properly. Okay, so we were doing 10.4. We went all the way. I did not upload. I did not upload. What did we do? Let's see. I think I did not upload. See what all I'm teaching. Algorithms you are doing next sem, but I'm teaching this year to someone. SCSS, yeah. I was in SCSS at that time. Engineering math. I haven't changed the name of the folder. Class notes. We had a class on 27th, alternate handshake. 28th, we had a class on 28th where we talked about 10.4. Cool. And I didn't upload this, right? Did I upload this? Assuming not. That's
No, sir, you
oh, fine,
didn't.
fine. 27th wala, hopefully I uploaded something. But the last I uploaded. 23rd. Very nice. Then 27th wala I should upload. Sorry. ठीक है. Graph theory is graph theory. You people have been busy with the other things. So catch up on graph theory today. Oh, today is the end of the year. Happy New Year in advance. I won't have time to say it at the end of the class, I know. Okay. So 10.4, what we did was we discussed what is a path in an undirected graph and what we mean by just specifying the vertices, which would work if it's a simple graph, but usually we specify edges which are adjacent to each other, which have one, they have common vertices basically. It begins at some end vertex, ends at vertex. It's called a closed path or a circuit. If begins and ends in the same place, it's called simple if there are no repeating edges. And the length of P is the total number of edges. As simple as that. Now read up the definition for a directed graph. That's what I asked you to do. Did I ask you to read all of these? I asked you to read all these things, right? Anyway, read up the definition for directed graph. Let's just get down to, I have changed my plan, so I'm going to do this connectedness, etc. And there are a lot of nice examples. Undirected graph is connected. So connectedness. Can you see this screen well enough?
Yes, sir.
Don't need. No, you can make it bigger. So this is related. You see, in networks, it's kind of obvious. You want to have a connection between one and another point, which you have in preference. Is it connected or not? That's a normal question. It has different meaning when the graphs are coming in different applications. And for example, in the internet graph web, which is web graph, they call it, which is used for page rank, etc. Connectedness would mean that, what would it mean? It has some other meaning. I'll not get into it. Somehow we are all connected, that sort of thing. Anyway, Facebook, we have seen degrees of separation. When is there always a path between two vertices in the graph? That's a small question. So it is connected if there is a path between every pair of distinct vertices in the graph. You can go from anywhere to anywhere else. Too much to ask? Whatever it is. If it's too much, it's too much. Connected is the meaning definition of that term. And not connected if you can find two vertices which are not having a path between them. And we disconnect the graph when we remove vertices to produce a disconnected graph. Anyway, forget about disconnect the graph. This is useless. So how do we check? So what about this? This is an intuitive notion, and I mean visually we are able to. This is straight from it. It appeals to our visual intuition. So you can easily see that this graph is disconnected, but yeah, it will take some difficulty to prove it. Nobody really gets down to the proofs of these things too much. But when the graph is defined abstractly, yes, you might need a proof. Can't see it, right? So you might need to say that, oh, look, this vertex has no connections with any vertex in the other some other group. So there's a theorem here which I'll just show you the statement. So what is the meaning of this? Between every pair of distinct vertices of a connected graph. Means you will always have a path between every pair. That is what it means to be connected. But you want a simple path. Means you don't want any repeated edges. This is a very nice sort of graph theoretic proof. The statement is simple, and the proof is more or less in the graph theory. Um, what do you call it? Spirit. You can read it. I'm not going to get into it. There will be some circle somewhere, and you remove that cycle, and you do it recursively till you get rid of all the cycles. Anyway, it's a very interesting proof, but I'm not getting into that proof now because we will try and cover as much as we can. This is another most important concept. So what is the connected components of a graph? So this is straight, it's coming from relations, equivalence relations, but I have not taught you that, so I'm not going to get into that explanation. Um, whatever they say is fine. The largest possible subgraph. So did we see what's a subgraph? I hope you have read up the definition of a subgraph. Subgraph is something where the vertices and edges are subsets of the original v, comma e. The graph induced by a subset of the vertices is all possible edges which are there in E should be appearing in this new subgraph also. Go and check those two definitions. Okay. Right now, what's a connected component? In some sense, it's a maximal connected subgraph. Let me write it down. It's important to start writing down now. What is connected? So I'm going to, yeah, but I'll ask you to read up something else. But right now, at least let me do these two things. I had given it as an exercise, I know, because there was so much to do. I thought, really, whatever. So G is connected if for every UV in V, there exists path in G between U and B. So what is the meaning of path between U and B? A path starting at U and ending at B. Could also say the same. I mean, the path, when you write it in the opposite order, will start at B and end in U. It's just the order of the edges that matters. It doesn't matter. Direction is not there here. It's undirected, right? So there is a path between U and B means a path beginning in U and ending in B. I could write that, but try to save you that trouble confusion. You have to get confused a little bit. For every two vertices in B, there is six paths. So U not equal to B. I mean, we don't want to bother about loops. What's this? Why are these junkies calling me every 5 minutes? For all U and B such that U not equal to B, there exists a path in C between U and B. That's the graph is connected. And what's the connected component?
Sir, what is that sign after G is?
Connected. Okay, fine, no problem. People are gotten so used to my good handwriting. The last batch would never have asked such a question. Whatever is there has come here also. And when I start writing on boards, yeah, beware. But you might have passed out by then. I mean, I won't be teaching. God forbid I teach you theory of computation. Then you will have it actually. But if they can get experts from, such IITs and NITs to teach you, then we are saved. You are saved from me. Connected component. So a connected so H is a, now hopefully you know what I mean. Connected component of G. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
H is a connected component of G if H is a, so this is a mathematical definition, maximal connected subgraph of G. So this is a mathematical sort of definition. But Rosen wrote it first time, was better. So I'll write it in red. Or H is a subgraph of G which is connected A and is not a, no additional vertices or edges can be added to it. Edges added obviously will make it connected. So it's not a subgraph of any other connected. I don't know what he's written. Let me see what he's written. He's better. It's a connected subgraph that is not a proper subgraph of another. Yeah, that's what he's written. Wait, can you just speak a little? Anyone can speak?
Yes.
Sorry, I missed it. Anyone can speak?
Hello, sir.
Okay. Only one of my earphones worked and I wanted to know. Okay. Once again, sorry. Anyone say hello?
Good morning, sir.
Hello,
Good
sir.
morning. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes, yes. All of you have said hello and yeah, Happy New Year too. Let me continue with this useless definition. Is not a subgraph of any other connected subgraph of G. So this seems to be very monotonously long. So I'll write it in blue here also. I mean another of my definitions. Or H is Yes, connected subgraph is fine of G and any vertex added. So to make it, it's not a proper subgraph. So okay, yeah, it's not a subgraph. Any other? See, let me just give you an example. Okay, I'll write it down. Any other vertex B of G. So first thing is, I'll write it down in my words. Huh? It's a connected subgraph of G induced induced by vertices, its vertex set and any other vertex is disconnected from it. Any other vertex in G and there is no path and there is no path between H and any other vertex in G. So it's a little complex to explain, but this is a very important concept, so we cannot, take it lying down. Even if you people are in one, some of you are lying down, fine. I don't get to see you ever, right? Is that true? Probably. So, like in this graph that we had seen already, which is the connected component. I mean, how many connected components are there? Suppose I add this also and some more. Okay, so there is a graph with a lot of vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have a graph of this sort. Connected components. How many connected components? How many connected components are there? So basically what you should tell is you just have to tell the vertices which are there in the connected components. Because the graph, the edges are literally induced. You know what the meaning of induced is? So anyway, are the graphs induced by? So nobody is saying anything and you people are like puzzled. What are the connected components in this? The vertices. Which vertices are connected to each other? Okay, I guess. I have written this. Do you people get what I have written?
Yes, sir.
Basically, what we are saying is, if you just take 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the graph induced by this subset is one connected component. So basically, I'll write it in red. We have done it before also, but let's just do it. This is the subgraph, right? This is one subgraph, H1. And then we have another subgraph with the 6 and 7 and the edge between them. And then we have the third subgraph, which is 8 and 9, and the edge between them. So basically, S3, I'm not getting the color. Okay, I'll change it. I hate to do such nice things, but maybe I don't want to be with bad teacher. three subgraphs, and these are the three connected components of the graph. Basically, there is no connection between 6 and 1, or 6 and 2, or 6 and 3, 6 and 4, 6 and 5. If by fluke you had a connection between 6 and 5, we know that 5 is connected to 1, 5 is connected to 2, 5. I mean, there's a path between 5 and 1, 5 and 2, 5 and 3, 5 and 4. So, you see, in the component, there is always a path between 5 and any other vertex. That's what we mean by a connected graph. And the component has to be connected. But there is no, connection between any of these components. That's all. And just by visually seeing, maybe sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Our brain is good at these things. So maybe you get it, but still, in graph theory, you might want to have a proof, or even if you don't have a proof, this definition is important because many proofs start with let H be the connected component of which contains P or something. So any vertex you take, it will fall into one connected component or the other. Is this part clear? This is generally what is called an equivalence relation. U being connected to V is a relation which is equivalent, means U is connected to V, V is connected to U is connected to itself by some trivial definition. V said not equal, but chalo, we can put itself. And U connected to V connected to W means U is connected to W. Transitive. That is how you get these components. But we'll talk about relations later. Uh, Other things you can see connected components called graphs around that. When a call graph made during a particular day was analyzed, graph was found to have so many vertices, so many edges, more than 3.1 connected components. So basically, it's not like most people are calling each other. There are several edges, but you know, I call you, you call your friend, and so on. We have small groups. We don't have huge groups which are connected with each other. I never end up calling Priyanka Chopra usually, and so on, that sort of thing. At least on that particular day, I might not have called her, or she would have called me or any of my friends. I mean, for all practical purposes, she doesn't know that I exist. Most of these components were small, very small, almost like pairs only, that called only each other. Isn't that so common? Yeah, and so on. So one huge connected component with so many vertices. Wow, how did that happen? It's a little difficult for me to believe, but it may be a business sort of thing. Everyone is connected to some sort of exchange or uh, something like that. Otherwise, how would they have a huge connected component? So it's difficult for me to understand it. But you are the experts here. I'm not at all an expert. How connected is a graph? So this is important for you to go and read up these concepts. What a cut vertex means, cut edge, and how to find them visually. First, there are algorithms for doing so, which we will not cover. At least you should know the definition of vertex connectivity and edge connectivity. Where is that? Did I say that? Edge connectivity is lambda. Edge connectivity. So these two things, of course, you would like to read up. Any questions at this stage? So D, E, and F. Let me just cut this. I will just get through this connectivity in I agree that you Please read up. Since when did I become so polite that nobody knows? Hey, today you're in luck. Since it's the end of the year before the class is over, she might start barking, but right now she's sleeping. And you have a good chance to view her, to see her. I mean, my dog, right? If any of you want to have a look. See, I can't see her. Ah, can you see her?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For a very unusual time, she's sleeping. So I'm sitting in this room. So that one headache is less. You won't get this chance again. Don't worry. Let me complete this section by saying how do you applications are there, but how do you talk about connectedness in directed graph? This is important. Sometimes one does for the, like web graph and all, there is a direction for every link. I mean, if you want to. So this is what a directed graph has. It has two notions of connectedness. One is strongly connected. You have to be able to go from A to B and B to A also. That is strongly connected. You can see this, but I'll write it down in the notes before uploading. Weakly connected if there is a path in the undirected graph. The arrows are here and there. Somehow you're able to find a connection. So this is a very bad notion of connection, but it's relevant at some time. When you disregard the direction. Underlying undirected graph means you ignore the order of the arrows, you ignore the order of the endpoints, and then that gives you a path. So there is no point shown in figure 5 strongly connected or they weakly connected. Where is figure 5? Ah. So this is the thing. Is it strongly connected or weakly connected? They have asked. So let's just take E, G only. So you can go from D to E, A, B, D. From A, you can go all the way. So this in this cycle, you are happily able to cover. Even B, C also you are able to go. So once you have a cycle, A, B, C, D, E, A, circuit, basically, in a directed graph, you have a circuit. So you can go from any edge to any vertex to any other vertex. There's no problem with G. In fact, there's one extra, but that doesn't change anything. It changes the notion of cut vertex, etc. But here the arrows are a little mixed mashed. So you can go from D to A two ways, but A only you can only reach A. You cannot go up from A. That's the problem. Here B you can somehow reach B from D, but that's all. Only D to B edge is there, and or C to D to B, etc. That's the problem. This is weakly connected, but not strongly connected. Is that clear? Okay. Any questions you can ask me? Otherwise, we get down to we didn't do isomorphisms there. Hmm. We will not do isomorphisms. We'll do it later next week. I want to just complete this. Uh, uh, Counting parts also is the representation. Once you know about addition, that's next week. So whatever I said, that's true. Just read up this and connectivity in directed graph. So I will write down here, ignore and all that I said because I'll do next week. I will not do parts and isomorphisms, but I will do isomorphisms in general. So there's the notion of strongly connected, and there's a notion of weakly connected. I'll write it down and upload it. Okay, let's move on to the next section, which is Euler and Hamilton. Usually we say Eulerian graphs, paths, and Hamiltonian paths. Somehow, for the first time, we see Rosen having a shorter notation than our usual. Anyway, we'll follow it. So Euler is the name of a person, Hamilton is the name of another guy. But you see, there's a big story here. When graph theory was first formed, that was this story. Please go and look the graph. Sorry, the question is related to the Princess of Königsberg, a place in Russia. Currently, it's in Russia. Anyway, it was very close to that place where the king of Russia, monarch of Russia, used to live, and he asked Euler to solve this problem. And Euler quickly made up a graph. So in these days we call it a graph, but those days he invented it literally. He made a graph of these regions. There are bridges, and his question was, the question of everyone was, can you go once if you're staying in part B of the town, or part A, part C, part D of the town? Is there a way in which you can go on a walk by taking each bridge only once and come back to where you started? If you want to get back from B to B, but you want to take only, oh no, no, that part, that thing you can do. So the question was something, it's Eulerian, sorry, Hamiltonian is different path. Eulerian is you should cover all the bridges, travel across all the bridges once. So that's the more complicated question. Why they want to do this, we don't know. But is it even possible that you can walk on all the bridges once? You don't have to get back to where you started, but somehow you want to cover all the bridges in your walk without repeating them. Is that possible? It's a very strange question, and strange answer was no. I mean, strange thing, obvious answer, but he proved it. He proved it using what is called nowadays Eulerian path theory, Euler path. So let's just get down to the definition. An Euler circuit and an Euler path. There are two differences. Why? Because circuit is the one which is closed. It ends in the same place where it began. Path you don't have to. So an Euler circuit is a simple circuit containing every address key. You should have a path which begins and ends in the same place, goes through every address G, and is simple. Let me write it down. I call it Eulerian path. Path is Eulerian if. So if Eulerian. I'll do it in my favorite way. No? A path is Eulerian, but no, he writes Euler path. No? So a path is called an Euler path. Euler is the way we pronounce his name. So he was one of the masters of 17th, 18th century math. In fact, we even follow his ideas to this day. He did a lot of stuff. He was in Germany, but he kind of lost his job and he moved to Leningrad or wherever it was, where the monarch was, and he kept publishing. He went blind and he kept publishing. So he's probably published more than even modern day mathematicians. Just kept writing papers. Path is called an Euler path if it uh, passes through, contains all the edges. The path is usually defined contains all edges of E and is simple. Means no repetition of the edges. If you write down the edges one after another, there should be no repetitions and all edges should be covered. So it's a permutation literally of the edges of E. You've heard of permutation and all, right? So it should contain all of them and it should contain them exactly once. So I'll just put it in my own words. Is a permutation of E. The path is a permutation of E. When you define it only by edges, if you define by vertices, you're allowed to have many repetitions like we do in this conic first problem. I mean, you can't just have one. I mean, there are only four vertices and several edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 edges. You need to repeat them, maybe. But is it even possible? That's the question. And okay. Another thing about the Eulerian cycle or circuit. Uh, circuit, a closed path. If it is closed, it's called an if it is also closed, then it is called, this is how we write an Euler circuit. Okay, so I mean, yeah, two bridges to go from A to C, and then one bridge go from A to D, and one each. Again, two bridges here. People, they were very fond of building bridges. How many bridges between Delhi and Noida? Any idea? Going over the Yamuna Valley. Okay, check it out. Very
Sir, if
long.
there are multiple edges between A and C, why, how it is simple?
How does simple? What one?
Yeah, simple. It is mentioned, na, the all edges of E and it is a simple graph.
Simple path. Simple path. Acha, simple graph is different from simple path. The path is simple if no edges are repeated. The path is closed if beginning and ending in the same place. The simple path means, yeah, this is the multi-edge. Agreed. So graph is not simple. Do you have a simple path? Do you have a permutation of the edges? Like let's say E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7. Just tell me, give me a path which contains all of these in one shot. That could be red. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That you would have missed out E3. Or you have many more options, but somehow you will never be able to do it. So if this E3 wasn't there, you could easily have come up with a lot of simple paths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, that's a negative thing. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somehow I thought I did it. 1, 2, 5, 6. Okay. At least I'm able to do that. Funny. 4. ठीक है. However, we placed, if it's also closed, it's called an Eulerian circuit. So is it even possible to have a path? Was the question, but can you have a circuit also? So this is the most important thing. There is a theorem he proved. As you must have realized by now, you have to somehow come back also, right? Even in the beginning, even in the middle, you have to go and leave it also. To reach a vertex and leave it. So whenever you do such things, the degree, and you have to cover all the possible edges also. So the degree of any vertex will be even. You reach an edge and you have to leave it. Every time you reach an edge, you have to leave it. Every time, the only possibility is beginning and ending. So if they're the same, then again you have to get back to it. So all vertices should have even degree. This is the finding of Euler, necessary and sufficient conditions. Euler discovered them when he solved the famous Königsberg bridge problem. So we will assume that all graphs have finite number of vertices, but not multiple graph is fine. Undirected we're talking about always, right? So what are we talking about here? Let me just recall what we're talking about. I'll write it in red because see Saksham has rightly brought our attention to what are we talking about. So G, multiple graphs, multiple edges allowed, and so are loops allowed, undirected, and it's an undirected graph because we are not getting down to direction in this whole conversation. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to go and come back in random order. You could have discussed this for directed graphs also, but Euler does not do it. It's more difficult to have a theorem for. So there is a theorem by Euler only. What is the theorem? So like this, if you see, we'll see the theorem. Necessary and sufficient condition. Very interesting. Let me just write down the theorem. Okay, we summarize these results in theorem. He's writing the proof first and then writing the theorem later. Connected. So this is important. If you have, if they are not even connected, there is no chance, right? So we'll could have written connected, but anyway, I'll write down the theorem here. So we are talking about G is a connected. So connected means there's a path between every edge, every vertex, any two pair of vertices. Multi-graph. He's calling it a multi-graph. Multiple edges allowed. And loop allowed. Okay. Then G has an Eulerian path, has an Eulerian circuit. We call G to be Eulerian. G has an Euler circuit if and only if all vertices have even degree. Means, remember we had our handshaking theorem and we said the number of vertices with odd degree is even. Could be 0. If it is 0, then we are happy. Then what important thing that Euler is saying is just by looking at the degree, you can conclude whether it has an Eulerian circuit or not. So one way is easy. That's what I was trying to explain. Suppose G had an Eulerian circuit. So this way, it means G has Euler circuit. Then we want to prove that all vertices have even degree. Okay. Let me just indicate the proof. I'm not writing everything down because we don't have so much time. But I will just tell you the other proof also. So suppose you have an Eulerian circuit. I mean, I'm not trying too much more. So what it means is, if you write down the vertices, I'm just going to explain it in words. So basically, the circuit, you have to write one edge after another, right? E1, E2, E3, E4. You have to write it in order. So every time you write it in order, when you enter, there's nothing called, there's a undirected graph, but the vertex that they have in common will have two edges emanating out of it. So by degree, we can mean neighbors. Oh, see, what does he say? Oh, I think I mentioned this last time also. Here, degree he is counting. Okay. We should count the number of edges that are incident. Remember, we had a discussion on what definition of degree is good for a multigraph. I hope you remember. So anyway, if we are counting degree equal to number of edges incident with V, degree of V is the number of edges incident with V. For loop, we are counting two of them. Means you go and come back, that sort of thing. Remember this discussion we had?
Yes.
If you don't remember also, do you have another class right now?
Yes, PL.
PL. So okay, we'll stop this. But this is the theorem that Euler proved, and therefore the bridges of Königsberg cannot have it because each of them have odd degree. So therefore, this bridge problem cannot be solved. It does not have an Euler circuit. When does it have an Euler path and etc.? I will write it down and we'll discuss it on Monday. Is there something for Hamiltonian also? We will do next week. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Happy New Year once again.
Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year, sir.